Good morning, YouTube. Oh. Good morning, YouTube. And welcome to What the Papers Say with Deke Jackson. Now, before I get into the papers, I should just like to relate to you something which happened to me a little while ago. Over my shoulder, perhaps you can see that I am in the car park of McDonald's. I am in fact in Darlington in England, which is enemy territory as far as I'm concerned. I'm not really a fan of coming to England, not because it's full of English people, and also not because it's not full of English people, but because it's England, and the whole place is a little more intense and nervy and anxious and wound up. Everybody's slightly less relaxed. Good morning, sleepy shoegazer. And if evidence of that was needed, I'll let you know what happened when I went to McDonald's. I purchased a paper and I went to McDonald's to have coffee and porridge, if such a thing were possible. I was prepared to give them the details of Nicola Sturgeon at Bute House in Scotland if they asked me for contact trace details. I was prepared to tell them, good morning, Javier Fernandez. I was prepared to tell them that I am autistic and exempt from wearing a face mask. And the woman at the door, the little Hitleress at the door said, hello there, hello. Would you sanitize your hands, please? No, I don't do that. No, you have to. It's the law. I'm sorry, what? It's the law. Well, I'm autistic and I don't touch that stuff. It's cancerous, I told her. It's the law. You can't come in unless you sanitize your hands with this product that we have on the table next to us. I said, show me the law. I read the law. That's not the law. It is not the law, people. It's simply not the law. There are legal guidelines for businesses as to how they should conduct hygiene on their premises, but it's not the law. And if I were autistic and I decided to have a hissy fit there at the front door, Karen, for that was her name, I know, the irony is not lost on me. Karen would eventually have appeared in some newspaper as having wound up some autistic person, demanding that they comply to a law which isn't a law, against the wishes of the autistic person and their sensitivities to cancerous products of giant pharma. So, it's not the fucking law. And I objected, but I could tell one of the reasons I don't like coming to England is, man, you can be arrested like that. Man, before you know it, some uppity security guard at Morrison's has got their panties in a twist. Oh, we've got one here. And before you know it, you're surrounded by four burly representatives of Her Majesty's Constabulary, and you're off to the cells to explain yourself and later be released when they realise they can't charge you with jack shit. So, that's what happened to me in McDonald's, which is why I had to sit in my van and drink my coffee. Anyway, on with the papers. Today's paper is not the Scottish edition of the Times. Isn't that great? It's actually got international news. Fantastic. And the front page says, Johnson and Sunak split over reform of pensions. This is not really a story at all. It purports to represent some kind of division between Boris Johnson and Rishi Sunak on how to fuck pensioners over in regard to the triple lock, which was a Conservative election pledge. And because of depression of wages caused by COVID, the triple lock will require next year the pension to go up by inflation, or it goes up by whichever's the biggest, that's it. Whichever is the biggest, 2.5% inflation or wage rises. Now, if wage rises have been depressed during COVID and they leap up next year, the pension will have to go up a lot, costing the British taxpayer about 2 billion according to figures. Hey, that's nothing. Our national debt's now 2 trillion. 2 trillion, people. Are you sitting comfortably? This fake plandemic is costing you 2 trillion in debt to the few wealthy bankers of Earth. Now, if you were looking, as I am, for an explanation of why we're going through all of this bizarre shit for something which isn't doing much to anybody, then perhaps the cost to the national finances is one explanation. Perhaps the realigning of debt on you versus debt in banks, i.e. where are the banks going to get all their money? From you! Your government's going to get it. The government's going to ask the banks to print some more money, which we have to pay back, therefore balancing the awful balance sheet of international capitalism, which was totally fucked in the 2008 financial crash. There's no money for pensions, by the way. Every pension pot on earth is totally fucked. You'll be lucky if you get a bag of chips and a glass of water when you retire. Something to look forward to there. And speaking of the pandemic, the thumbnail, and I'll come to this story quite soon, the thumbnail for today's piece is not the front page, but a graph showing that deaths per million from coronavirus have plummeted, totally plummeted, even as and in the face of mass testing. But we'll come to that. Take a hike. Landowners tell coast walkers to go the long way round. This is a story about how the right to walk across England's green and pleasant land isn't a right at all, it turns out. And Natural England, a charity for creating footpaths, promised ramblers a coastal path around England. But it turns out that because large parts of England are owned by the aristocracy, you're not getting that. You're just simply not getting a coastal path. And as it says here, however, it seems that the agency had not counted on the landed elite, including the Rothschilds and some of Britain's wealthiest aristocrats. That should just say, and the Rothschilds, Britain's wealthiest aristocrats. And for those of you not familiar with my work and history of ranting on YouTube, I know quite a lot about land. I formed the Landless Peasant Party to demonstrate and exemplify how we are the livestock of the people who own the land you walk on. And this is just another example of that, should you need one. And half of 1%, if you take the population of Britain, I take 1% of that and half it, that's who owns all of the land. That's a little exclusive, isn't it? So let's just go over those figures again, because they may seem slightly confusing at first. 99.5% of the population of Britain are livestock. They are landless peasants. They are simply the goods and chattel and playthings of people who own the land. Here's another great story. All right. I hope you can see that. It's a cartoon of Barack Obama wearing a tie with the Judaic symbol on it. And so this story concerns the resignation. The entire board has resigned at a Muslim charity. They resigned en masse after it replaced the trustee with a man who labelled Islamic terrorists heroes and described Israel as the Zionist enemy. Social media posts by the director of Islamic Relief Worldwide glorified terrorist attack. David. Oh, it's awful. Oh, it's awful. Oh, how terrible. Not that I have any sympathy for the religion of Islam, but man, my religion says Jews are evil, retarded, moron, idiot fucks, and Muslims. And I wouldn't sack anybody who posted such a thing on behalf of astronomers. And this is evidence of an attempt to sanitize, if you like, and to create a level playing field for these bizarre, insane religious beliefs to all shake each other's hands and behave as if it's normal to have insane hocus pocus beliefs. If you're a Muslim and you believe in Islam, you surely, by definition, believe that Jews are evil. You know, they're not Muslims. I assure you, Jews believe you're evil. It's in both of your holy books. Both of your holy books say the other one is evil. And so I feel a pang of sympathy, just a small one, infinitesimal really, almost quantum, that The man who posted this has been sacked, for surely he is simply following the path of Allah. And I would like to apologize for historians for a video yesterday where I confused Allah with Muhammad. Allah is God and Muhammad is his prophet. Not that I could give a fuck. But new curbs introduced in North England. Okay. Oh, and Sleepy Shoegazer, if you're out there, I'm headed to busk York this evening, I believe. I think you're in Yorkshire. But I will be in York sometime this evening, briefly, perhaps, to do a quick busk. I'm going to be busking Darlington this afternoon, York tonight. Okay. Alright, first there's a story. Cancer care backlog may kill 30,000 people. Not from coronavirus, just from hospitals, nurses and doctors abandoning care of other sick people to spend all of their time wiping down the floorboards. I'm in Darlington and I am headed for York, the city of York. Oh, I don't know exactly where. I'll find somewhere. I'm loud though. Okay, this story here is pivotal. It really is. Things are getting better, but no one knows why. So, the fact is that dying from coronavirus is becoming less and less and less likely, and no one knows why. In March, if you came into a hospital and you had trouble breathing, we would slap you straight onto a ventilator, almost certainly ensuring your death, because that's such an intrusive and dire and drastic medical procedure. They don't do that anymore. Some people have argued that this is an illusion created by more testing. Okay, which hardly seems likely, because if you have a population of 10 million, no matter how much you test, the death rate per million from COVID is surely the death rate per million. It doesn't matter how many people you test in your population of 10 million, the death rate per million is exactly the same. And so there's a graph here, which I will show you again, in case you didn't see it on the thumbnail. Right, let's all take a real close look at this graph, okay? All right, vast increase in number of people with the coronavirus, dwindling number of people dying from it, dwindling, right? Dropping like a stone. So, what's the beef? Why am I being challenged to cover my hands in cancerous goo at McDonald's? Why are these people here like zombies wearing face masks even in the street? Why are draconian laws about your right to travel on planet Earth being introduced all over the place? When it would appear that coronavirus, which wasn't very dangerous even in the first place, is now even less dangerous. There's always another theory. Dr. Paul Tambaya, President-elect of the International Society of Infectious Diseases, said, an increasingly common mutation in the coronavirus may be making it less deadly. Viruses have no interest in killing their host. They evolve to be increasingly benign. They fade into the background to the point where they become a common cold. Is this what we are seeing? Question mark. I'll leave you to draw your own conclusions from that and to begin for yourself a process of civil disobedience in disobeying all and any of this pish. I will not wear a mask. I will not sanitize my hands, and I will not give my correct name at any juncture to any little Hitler-S or Hitler anywhere at all, ever. And fuck this pish. German pupils and teachers in quarantine as cases surge. Okay, now see yesterday's news for how cases are now the new buzzword. Juan Gomez. Okay, Juan Gomez, good morning. Cases surge, not deaths, not hospitalizations, just cases, because of course the more people you test, the more people you will find with coronavirus. I mean, here are some space-suited zombies in Germany because cases have soared. Ghislaine Maxwell in court fight to keep old legal papers secret. Now this is a story about a deposition that Ghislaine Maxwell made during Epstein's prosecution for, I forget what it was, lewd practice, child endangerment or something. Epstein was convicted of some kind of sexual misconduct towards minors. And Ghislaine Maxwell was made to make a deposition. Now, at the time, her lawyers tried to seal that up and make it watertight, as in it could never be used for any other purpose or revealed or made public. But now, because it turns out Epstein was a real deep, dark midden supplying underage people. I mean, we don't know it was just girls, do we? For all we know, it could have been dogs, cats and goats as well. So her deposition is now legally at risk of being opened up. And you can bet that in that deposition, there's a whole host of incriminating information about the clients of Epstein and Ghislaine's own behavior. Yabu sucks. I could give a fuck. This is a fantastic story. Boris Johnson, while I'm in England, Boris, you should have said, while I'm in England, Boris is in Scotland. Boris is up north where I was at the weekend. Well, a little bit further than I was. Here is Boris. Okay, here is Boris holidaying near Applecross, near the Isle of Skye in Scotland. And if you can just see circled there, there's a tent he put up in his garden. But it wasn't his garden. It turns out that piece of ground he pitched that tent on wasn't his. It wasn't part of the Holiday Let's grounds. It was, in fact, it belonged to a sheep farmer who's most annoyed that Boris didn't ask permission. Although in my experience of camping in Scotland, you don't actually, unlike in England where the Rothschilds can tell you to fuck off their land, in Scotland, wild camping is a thing. And unless you are damaging, or unless you cause damage to some land somewhere, you can camp anywhere you like, almost. Although I don't recommend camping on a grouse moor where the beaters and the shotgun shooters are coming, who've had a little sherry that morning. You might not want to do that. Boris is holidaying in Scotland, and I don't know why he's put up a tent, because of the house. But let's have a closer look at that tent. Isn't that the worst tent you've ever seen? I mean, what kind of tent is that? What's it? This man's a multi-millionaire. Surely he can afford something high-tech and space-age. I mean, what's going on in that tent? Also, is that where he makes the staff sleep? Is that where the security details sleep? All right, boys, I'm going to bed now. Perhaps you'd like to go out to the tent. I don't know. Tesla sensors will protect children in hot cars. Its cars can already drive down the motorway, park themselves and be summoned remotely, but now Tesla wants to make sure car owners don't forget about their children. It will use millimeter wave technology, that's microwaves, same technology is used in 5G, to detect and measure a body so it can tell the difference between adults and children. Such technology will be able to detect children left in the vehicle that other systems might miss. I wonder if the system can also let them watch Lion King on DVD or agree to get them an ice cream later. You know, if you're relying on your car to not to save your children being asphyxiated, what kind of dick are you? Tesla's not said what alarm or feature it would deploy once a child is detected in a hot car. Perhaps it'll play them some soothing music on their way out of this earthly realm. But the car could turn on the air conditioning and send alerts to the owner's phone through their accompanying Tesla app. Exam chaos, yawn. Climate forces farms to start growing soya. Britain's agriculture is preparing for the worst wheat harvest in decades. Yield is down 35%, say the National Farmers Union, because of climate change. Extremes in weather are something farmers will have to get used to. Improvements in soil management, blah, blah, blah. Already growers in the southeast of England are investing in soya, a legume native to Southeast Asia that thrives in hot conditions. It has become a popular plant-based meat and dairy alternative. And so, good luck to the rest of the world. Because just as Britain becomes a kind of place where agriculture shifts from growing crops that thrive in temperate zones to crops that thrive in more hot, arid or humid zones, so the people of Southeast Asia will have to get used to not growing anything. Not growing anything and starving in large numbers. And perhaps they can then try and paddle their way over here to eat some soya on an inflatable duck paddled with a rolled up copy of Le Figaro from France, waved down the beach by a friendly French policeman screaming, "Allez, le Grand Breton est ici." Yogurt firm sorry for cow yoga class. A natural yogurt company has apologized to Hindus for hosting a yoga session with cows in a field. What are they sorry for? What are they sorry for? They only did the yoga in the same field. They didn't make the cows do the yoga. They didn't do the yoga on the cows. You know, the cows just appeared in the background of their photography and video. What are they sorry for? I swear, this culture of apologizing to people whose sensitivities are bizarre in the first place should make us all concerned for the forthcoming little Hitler world that we live in. I will not apologize to your religion. Your religion is nuts, and if you believe it, you're a moron. And I'm not sorry. Well, I'm not sorry I said that. I am sorry you're a moron. I'm sorry there are so many morons. Speaking of migration, there is sympathy for migrants on the Kent coast, but some locals think officials should take a firmer stance. Kate Forey knows how unforgiving the channel can be. She lives on the coast and swims in it every day all year round, whatever the weather. Early in the morning last year, whilst walking along the shingle beach by her home, north of Dover, she saw a dinghy of men land in front of her. She guessed they were mid-20s to late 50s. They were soaking wet. They didn't have suitable clothing. They were freezing. One of them was semi-collapsing. They watched her silently call the police. She wished she could have taken them back to her cottage and at least offered them a cup of tea. Well, what was stopping you, Kate? What was stopping you? Exactly. I mean, you know, what's the problem there? It doesn't say, it says that Kate defies anyone not to feel pity and then do fuck all for them. I defy you not to feel pity while I phone the border force to have them removed to the concentration camp. I mean, this story, if you take it from the headline, is something about some kindly white middle-class English woman who feels pity for the awful wet, cold migrants washing up on the shore. But actually, when you read it, she's a dobber, she's a grass. She didn't just wander off and leave you to your chances. She dobbed you in. She phoned the fucking pigs and had you lifted. Then she comes in the newspaper and claims she feels pity for you. Fuck you. Bada bing, Hospital sorry for listing LGBT as a mental disorder. I don't know how that happens. Uh, but you've got to love the comedy in that. Extinction Rebellion activists are planning a 2-week street campaign inspired by Hong Kong's pro-democracy protests. That'll be ineffective waste of time and energy then. Unlike last year, when the group disrupted public transport and blocked roads, this time it will instigate pop-up protests to frustrate efforts to shut them down. The only encampment is planned for roads around Parliament on September the 1st. Rupert Reid, who I watched a whole half hour of on Hard Talk on the BBC once, and he's a raving loon. He really is. A leading Extinction Rebellion activist said the group had been highly influenced by the Hong Kong, especially Be Water strategy, in which protesters arrive unannounced and swiftly disperse, creating no protest at all. They just appear and then disappear before you've even noticed them. Like the wind. Shh, what was that? That was Extinction Rebellion. Shh. There's been quite a lot of reflection in the movement on what worked and what didn't. Targeting public transport and disrupting working people's lives is not a way to win friends and influence people. This time the aim is to be more focused on institutions and will be popping up here and there. Shh. Organisers hope that protests from other movements, such as Black Lives Matter, who held marches last month, will join them. Good luck with that. Extinction Rebellion has advised its activists to wear masks at all times and remain socially distant. They're so rebellious. But they don't want to go extinct. At least not from coronavirus. I would have, I have no sympathy for this movement or these people. Really, I don't. And if they wanted to do a pop-up protest, might I suggest you pop up in a field somewhere near Boris Johnson's holiday home, pop up a tent and live in it. Live by example. Go and live without recharging your iPhone to send a smug text to your woke friends that you popped up somewhere as part of Extinction Rebellion. Remaining socially distant, of course. Nigel. Fuck you. Johnson the loner will govern as he pleases. I expect so. No need to read that opinion there. And now, international news. Joe Biden. I haven't seen his speech because I need to stay awake. But let's get to coverage of that. Oh well, I think that's later. Hey presto, Magic Circle conjures up its Holy Grail. After 4 decades, the Magic Circle has finally got its hands back on the Holy Grail, a first edition of the Discovery of Witchcraft by Reginald Scott that dates to 1584. The Society, I guess, has purchased this book. Historians say tales that James V of Scotland sought to have all copies of the book cannot be corroborated. First editions are rare. This is a manual of witchcraft, but actually it's magic, like not actual woo hocus pocus witchcraft, but a book about how to do prestidigitation, sleight of hand, tricks involving cups and balls and playing cards, and a knife through the arm. Its primary purpose was to debunk claims about witchcraft and hysteria growing at the time. Very good. I wouldn't mind a read of that. I like that we can be, that illusion is a thing, that people are easily deceived by a quick twist of the wrist. And that is so should make people wary of believing anything. You can so easily be deceived. You can be deceived by the flick of a wrist, by the turning of a head, and magicians do it all the time. Misdirection, I believe they call it, where they misdirect you to put your attention somewhere else while they do something, which is exactly what happens to us all the time in politics and by the people who rule over us all with no trouble at all. Misdirection. Case in point, the coronavirus. This is an unfolding disaster. A misplaced obsession. Misdirection. This is by leading oncologist Carol Sikora. A misplaced obsession in the coronavirus, fueled by vested interests. What a guy! I like him already. Is killing tens of thousands. During the pandemic, Britain has been forced to make trade-offs in how we contain two killers, cancer and COVID-19. We have got it badly wrong, says Carol Sikora. Studies suggest more than a decade of progress in saving lives will be wiped out this year. We've certainly caused the deaths of at least 30,000 patients, who would probably have been cured if it wasn't for COVID. I've seen a lot in my half-century in medicine, but I've never seen anything like this. It's an unfolding disaster. His advice for patients: don't get cancer in 2020. And I think that's good advice for any year, really. Oh, here it is. The Joe Biden story. That's him pulling down his mask so that you can tell who he is, in case you forgot. So, Joe Biden. I haven't seen the speech that I assume he made last night. He's vaguely normal. He's inoffensive, apparently. But he's also just another lying scumbag. He really is. He's just another lying scumbag. And when he becomes the government, he will become a lying, murdering scumbag. Okay, I think we're coming to the end of the news. George Floyd was killed by drugs, officer's lawyer claims. George Floyd contributed to his own death by taking powerful drugs as he was arrested and refusing to obey police instructions, according to a lawyer for one of the four officers. Now, this story claims that in the video, you can see George Floyd concealing drugs in his mouth and swallowing them, and that the autopsy shows, I believe this is a public fact, that his blood contained traces of fentanyl, methamphetamine, and other drugs. And so, in terms of reasonable doubt, I suspect that the officers in this case have a significant chance of beating this prosecution. And I'm not saying that they didn't kill him. I'm saying that, legally speaking, doubt can be sowed in a jury's mind enough as to prevent them being prosecuted or successfully prosecuted for murder. And finally, spurt and business for the Williams Formula One team has been sold to an American investment firm. Williams Formula One, run by Frank Williams his entire life, has been sold to an American investor, Dorilton Capital, 152 million. Well, there you go. I think that's a shame, because Frank Williams is an individual, and I like individuals in sport. I do not like corporate sport. I don't like that giant investment banks own football teams and stadiums, and I don't like the corporatization of people's lives. And I particularly don't like being told by a McDonald's employee that the law is that I must dip my hands in cancerous hand gel before coming in their store. However, it is the case that that's their shop, and they could bar me entry for any reason whatsoever. And so whichever reason they choose, I of course didn't press the matter, because I really don't want to get arrested in England. I don't want to get arrested anywhere. So I'm here in Darlington. I'm going for a busk now, and later on I will be in York, and I am then going to I'm going deeper into England. And so far, it's not been very funny. Let's hope I have more fun busking to the good people of Darlington and that they generously help pay my diesel. That's what the papers say with Deek Jackson. I hope you have a great day. I know I'm gonna. See you later.